Hey, welcome everyone to the From the Shadows podcast. I'm your host, Shane Grove. And before we get started with this episode, I want to remind everybody that if you want to check us out and just kind of hang out with us online, you can find us at the From the Shadows podcast on Facebook. You can find our forum page called After the Shadows. You can find me on Instagram at Shane Grove Author, or you can go to our From the Shadows podcast page on Instagram. You can contact us that way, send us messages, post some stuff, comment, do all kinds of crazy stuff to interact with us. And if you really want to put together an email and send me an email describing a encounter you had, go to our website at fromtheshadowspodcast.com, hit the contact button, and you can send me an email. And I will read it, respond, and if you have a story you'd like to share, we'll have you on the show because we love to hear personal experiences. And with that being said, that is why our guest is on today. I ran across his. Well, I think he responded to a post in a group online, and we were fortunate enough to hook up, and he's going to share some of his Bigfoot experiences with us. So, David, welcome to the From the Shadows podcast.
Hey, thanks, Shane. Glad to be here.
Well,
hopefully we can get the Bigfoots protected. Which is my ultimate goal.
Okay, well, that's an interesting take because I really haven't had a whole lot of people who have been on that. That would be their ultimate goal. So I'm curious. So it'll be curious to hear as you tell the story is from your angle, what it is that you think is out there, and what you've experienced, and why you think we need to protect these things. So why don't you go ahead, tell everybody, when your first experiences started, where they were at, and just kind of take us down the path of your Bigfoot experiences.
Okay. First, touching on what you were talking about, the what they are out there, that is still a mystery. I mean, I know they have emotions. I know they have families. I think they're smarter than we are. They have senses and actually some kind of paranormal powers, some way that we can't describe, and that maybe we could even have ourselves if we lived like they did, So I'm not sure what they are, but every one of them I've ever encountered has been gentle. I haven't had anything threatening. They just built a bridge here in Louisville that kind of disturbed some of the habitat that was on the edges of one of the places I was investigating a while back, And so I know that the families or any of the squatches that were living there had to relocate. So, and so to me, like me and you kind of talked the other day about, they'll stop a project for a little green three-legged frog or something, but,
Yeah.
they'll bust right through the Sasquatch areas, So that's kind of what my goal would be, to where they're considered in our policies that we come up with. But anyway, I'm not really sure why I ever got the bug to begin with, because when I started, there wasn't all this stuff on TV. There was no Bigfoots searching for Bigfoot or anything like that. And maybe I was, I've always been interested in Indian culture. Maybe I was doing something with the Indian culture and it came up, because if I always tell people that are struggling with believing is go and Google or research Native American tribes and put Sasquatch in there, because you'll find out that from the Pacific coast down all the way down to Florida, every different tribe of Indians had a different word for them, So I think that's what really got me going, thinking, man, this stuff might be real, you know. And I was just doing it online. I wasn't really getting out in the field or nothing. And so anyway, me and this friend of mine, we played music together, and he come over one time, and we were sitting around talking, and we took a break, and I said, Terry, I said, you don't, I haven't seen you in a while. I haven't told you about me checking out these Bigfoots online. And, you know, back then, the first people would roll their eyes and stuff, you know, and like, you know, okay, yeah. Well, but he said, wow, dude, I got to tell you something. He goes, I know this friend of mine that bought a house. No, I don't know if he bought it. I shouldn't have said that. He moved into a house in this area. And he said, and when he got there, he said he noticed fur on like the wooden posts and stuff on the porch. And he said, you know, he thought, what? That's kind of weird. And he said, and after he had been in there a while, the Sasquatch would come out in the yard and do their thing and not even pay no attention to him, you know, just look at him. And he said he tried to get the police and everybody to come out there, you know, and no, he couldn't get anybody out there. So, and I thought, wow. And so he told me where the place was. And first time I ever went out there, and I hadn't really known, the only thing I knew was stuff I'd read on the computer and stuff. And this road, I mean, it's a long, long road back into the woods, and nothing's back there. It goes past a rock quarry. Oh, that's another thing I wanted to kind of mention is that a lot of times rock quarries are good spots for Sasquatch for some reason. I find a lot of activity around rock quarries. Now, I haven't made a theory why. Maybe the shaking of the place opens up places in the ground for them to get in or what. But so anyway, it's way past this rock quarry and down into this area. And in a minute, I'll tell you what the area was, not the location, but the area. And so we're riding back there, and it was freezing cold. And we get to this one spot, and I look up on this hill, and I see what I call the teepees, you know, like the wood structures. And I'm like, wow, that looks like that thing, just like that thing I seen online. And so it was like, I mean, freezing cold, Shane. It must have been -0. And we weren't dressed to go out in the field looking. We were just going to ride by and see the area. And so when I seen that, the only one that would get out with me was my grandson. And we go over to the side of the, now this place where I'm talking about, the road's like this, and on the right side, the hill goes up. It's not a mountain, it's just a hill, maybe a 100-foot high hill, but with just a slight slant. And then down below is a creek. So it kind of goes like this, and here's the road, and then down like that. Well, so we went down to the left part where it goes down, and I was doing whoops because I'd heard it on the computer, and we heard something to me. It sounded like a whoop. And I'm like, wow, did you hear that? And he goes, yeah, Pappy. And I said, so then I started talking to him in English, you know, like humans. I was like, hey, we're not trying to hurt nobody or disturb you. I was just, you know, out here wondering, you know, do y'all want to come up here? And I heard like a, ah! And so I figured, well, they didn't want us around, so we left. So not long after that, I went back there and I checked out that wood structure and looked around, and I started seeing footprints, big footprints, like 17, 18-inch footprints. Not many, because as you and I talked about the other day, the adult Sasquatches are very, very good about hiding their footprints. They don't like making footprints. And now the little ones will screw up sometimes, but the big ones, they're pretty good. So to find one, well, obviously people make a big deal if they get a cast of one, you know, so they're not that, but it did seem like they were so far back that I think they took more liberties as far as being out and moving around than they would maybe in other areas. So anyway, so then I decided, well, I'm going to come back again, and my sister came back with me, and we spent a whole day down there and down towards the creek, and we were seeing like there was rock ledges, you know, where you could like get under there and sleep and stuff. And I was thinking, man, they probably sleep up under those things. And I've never seen a Sasquatch with a club or a walking stick, but for some reason, back at that part of my investigating career, I always thought they had a stick with them, and I think some of them probably do, depending on what they're going to do or the land. But every place there was always a big club or a big long walking stick linked up against the rock ledge. So I thought that was interesting. Also, there was bark pulled off of the trees, things like that. You could see where up higher where the actual fingerprints were going through the tree, getting the stuff to eat. And then down at the bottom, we found like a little bone of some kind of animal where something had been picking into the bark.
Okay.
And found a lot of little not baby, but smaller teepees, you know, like the kids were, you know, like watching their parents, and then they would make them a little one, you know.
Okay.
And the tree breaks, Shane, was because I had read about them, and I looked, and going down to where I was, probably about, I'd say 10 foot up, maybe 3-inch, 4-inch diameter saplings or little trees were just snapped. I mean, not bent over where the bark's still has it hanging. I mean, snapped right off of them. And so I'm like, I've got some hair and stuff like that. So anyway, I decided that I'm going to go back with my sister, but this time at night. I hadn't been there at night yet. And I had actually fibbed and told the landowner that I was a wildlife photographer, and because there was all kind of signs of, no trespassing, no hunting, and he allowed me to go back there. And so anyway, so we go out there this night, and this is when everything started really happening. When I take that back. This has been a while, so the events, the sequence of events, sometimes I get mixed up on them. But I forgot one time before that, I had went out myself, and I was knocking, and it was nighttime, and I was hearing like little chirps, and I had a couple of knocks, and then I thought between some bushes I had seen something that looked like to me a monkey or a gorilla go on all fours real fast past the thing a couple times, back and forth. And now that I know about them, that is what they're more interested in us than we are in them. Really, they're very curious. And so I had seen that. So then I go back to the house, and I'm thinking, wow, what was it I seen? That's weird. And so I started researching the area, and come to find out the people that had donated that land to the University of Louisville were anthropologists, studying primates and things like that. And I thought, well, I wonder if they just let some monkeys go back here, to study them, and nobody knows about it. You're so far back here, So I kind of thought, which actually made me not as scared, you know what I mean? Because you're out there in the middle of the night. And so it kind of gave me a feeling like, I'm just dealing with monkeys. So,
which is kind of the opposite, because monkeys out in the wild are pretty dangerous if you.
Yeah, but they're not 12 foot tall.
Yeah.
So anyway, because that's what I was seeing online, hey, these things are 8-10 foot tall. And so anyway, me and my sister goes out again, and this was the night that this stuff really started happening. And because I don't even consider the one I seen going back and forth as a sighting, even though now that I look back on it, I'm pretty sure it was. But so anyway, we get out there, and we're knocking, and the knocks had become routine, but monkeys do that too. They'll hit rocks on together and stuff like that. As a matter of fact, that's another thing that makes me wonder, what are these creatures? Because they have human and ape-like characteristics. They do have a lot of ape-like characteristics. And so we had messed around doing that and stuff like that. Oh, another thing, I always took food down there. Every time I go into an area that I'm going to investigate, I leave bananas and fruit, and you can actually leave containers, like Tupperware containers, and they will open those containers, take the stuff out and leave it. It's like they want you to know they're there, so you'll keep bringing more. The banana peels, they'll usually leave the banana peels there. Now bread, they'll take the bread with them usually, and but they love that kind of stuff. And they would leave me gifts. Well, this is on down the line. I'll get to that. But anyway, so I would leave food and everything. And so we had laid the food out and everything, and we were sitting there. And all of a sudden, from the hill part way back, actually towards the interstate, and there's an open field up at the top of that, and we could hear something big walking. I mean, you could tell it was big. Then it sounded like just a big man walking. And and we were sitting there and looking up there, and it got to the point to where we ought to have been able to see it. And excuse my bird dogs, the wind must have blew out there, they think they're guard dogs. But hey, shut up. So anyway, we're sitting there and looking up, and we think we should be able to see whatever it is. But it had stopped, and it had stopped right to where we thought we could see it, and we couldn't. And then finally, we look up there and we see this head sticking out beside this tree, and I'm like, what the hell? And Shane, this thing was huge. I mean, 12 foot up, and it was beside these two trees, and it was in the middle, and it was looking out like the left side. And I said, sis, do you see that? And she goes, yeah, I do. And I said, that's freaky. I said, let's go. And she goes, no, let's stay here. And I said, okay. I said, look, I'm going to take my little tree knocker, and I'm going to go towards it, and I'm going to knock on a tree, and you tell me what it does. And so I start walking that way, and she goes, wait a minute, give me your phone in case something happens, And I said, okay. So I give her my phone, and I'm walking towards it. And I'm thinking, wow, this might not be a good idea, walking up towards this thing. So I come back, and I decided I was going to knock, but I was going to go behind us, put her between me and the Bigfoot.
Oh boy!
No, I
brother of the year award, right?
So anyway, and so we make the new plan, and we're looking up there, and she goes, I don't see it no more. And I said, there it is, sis. And I pointed at it with that little knocker I had, and it went, made some kind of like a frightened noise. And, I didn't really think about it at the time, but thinking back, that thing had encountered either a hunter or something that it didn't like it pointing
something being pointed at it. Yeah.
Yeah. So something, they knew that wasn't a good thing, I guess. And, so anyway, now this is where it gets weird. And I didn't tell people this, but the more I've been researching it, other people have seen it too. This Sasquatch starts walking away, and Shane, it was like it walked up in the air and then disappeared into like this, I call it like a circle, or I don't know what it was. And now my sister didn't see that. She wasn't watching that. I was watching it through binoculars, because you could see and with the light, up on the top of the hill. And so as soon as I turned to say something to Sis about that, and I don't know if that one disappeared and came back, or if there was another one up there that we hadn't seen, but right up above us on that hill, right where the house is, where the guy lived. And as I told you the other day, I thought he knew all about everything going on there, because he was real. He would come around during the day, big lurch-like looking guy, and just to check on us. And but he couldn't run us off because I had permission from the owner. And but he didn't like me being there. And so anyway, this scream, and I've heard all kinds of different sounds online, you know, the Sierra sounds and whoops and things that sound like a train. This was like a demon from hell that was 100 times more powerful sound than a human. I mean, and it sounded like a woman dying, a lion roaring. It just was, it's indescribable. I can't describe it. And anyway, right before that happened, my son had called because he knew where I was, that I was out there and he always worried about me out there. And it was on the phone. I said, "Oh,
really?
Yeah.
You mean he heard it through the phone?
Yeah, he heard it through the phone." And I said, "Boy, Bub, did you hear that?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "I'm wanting to leave, sis. Don't want to leave." I said, "You know, this is for real." I told him about the big one. I said, "They're not monkeys. You know," I said, "These things are huge." And this one that just screamed, I could tell that was a get out of here scream. You know, that wasn't a welcome or a little, "Hey, how y'all doing?" And again, I wanted to leave. And another thing, a little tip that I had given you, even though I haven't ever had any aggressive behavior towards me, I still always point my car on the getaway route. So where you don't have to back up and, you know, in case anything does happen. And after that scream, I'm saying, "Sis, I want to get out of here." I said, "I'm done." I said, "I'm done. I want to get out of here."
And that's something I wanted to ask is how you feeling all these times experiencing this? Because
I would go, yeah, and it's like I told you the other day, and you might cut this part out, but when you first get scared, I call it your balls going up in your belly. I mean, you're ready to just crawl under a rock, run, just get the heck out of there. Although I have been paralyzed with fear before too with them, but if you hang in there for just a little bit, your balls will drop back down and your courage comes back. That's how I always explain it. But it is like that. It's like, whoa, and then just, okay. And, you know, and so, but sis, I don't know. I guess since women don't have any hurts, don't go up their belly, because she wasn't even acting scared. You know what I'm saying? And I've been wanting to leave for about half an hour. And so anyway, we're sitting there, and Shane, I'm not kidding you. Now, the one was up on the hill, and like I said, that went down to the creek, but then on the other side of the creek, it went back up to other hills. And you could hear this same thing we heard on this other one that we had seen walking from like maybe 2 hollers away. I mean, it was back there, but you could hear it clear. And it kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. And it came down the hill. You could tell it had passed the creek, and it was on its way up towards us. And it got to where if it came another 10 foot, probably it would have been out in the clearing. We were in a clearing. And I said, "Sis, I don't want to see what that is." I said, "Let's go." You know, because on the one up that we seen on the tree, you could see the outline of it. And it looked to me like, and I even put the binoculars on it, it looked to me like Curious George. You know, it didn't really have a lot of hair, like Patty's got all the hair on her face and stuff. And that wasn't like that, but it was like a big hairdo, like up where it's the crest or whatever you call it is. But the rest of his face was like, it wasn't scary looking. But the ones that I had seen online, some of them looked scary, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, well, this one is coming because that one screamed. So I don't know what the intentions are of this other one. So I wanted to get out of there. And that time she agreed. So we get out of there. And every time I investigated that area after that, I always felt awesome when I got to the highway. You know, like, okay, I got out of there. You know, I mean, it's a relief
Yeah.
because I was still real new in it, and I didn't know if they were aggressive or not. You know, and that scream sounded kind of mean. You know, and this other one was coming, and so in that area there, I took my son there. Then he wanted to go after you know, he heard that, and we had went, and I never seen any more. But we had knocks one night. We got tired of knocking. You know, it was so one over here, one over here, one over there, and that's why I always say, you know, and I don't want to talk bad about other people or anything, but Sasquatch knows you're there a long time before you would ever know they're there. I mean, the ones that you see is either a mess up or they don't care. You know, because if they don't want you to see them, you're not going to see them. As a general rule. And it's like I was telling you the other day, whenever I was going back there and I had food, you know, and they knew I had food, I would crank up old Hank on my Jeep, you know, going through them hollers. And actually, and another place I started going, which I'll get to that in a minute. And I don't know that this was Sasquatch, but I had this other place. I had to go down this big long road, and now it's kind of in a urban area, you know, where there's houses and stuff. But I would roll down the window and go slow, and I would hear whistles all the way down to where I was going. And I always wondered if that was them letting them know that I'm here without you know,
letting the next one know, hey, he's
right,
coming.
Yeah, kind of like Indians, you know. As a matter of fact, some Indian tribes called them hairy Indians. You know, there's certain tribes that think that that's what they are, that they're humans that just went out in the woods and stayed. Some of them say there were shamans that had to go on their mission or whatever and never came back. But, you know, I have no idea. I've got some theories, but I really have no solid theory about or hypotheses about what they really are, because every time I think I know something else will happen and I'll go, wow, that's weird. Like we were talking about with the globes or the orbs, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
And orbs are around. Matter of fact, something I didn't tell you the other day, and I thought about it. I'm sober now. Me and you talked about that. I'm 7 years sober, but back in the day I wasn't. And so me and my Coke dealer went out together, and we're drinking beer, and I had found this place, and it was actually a park at the end of a subdivision, but it had railroad tracks and places where if you looked at a map, you could see like where you could travel through there without being, matter of fact, sometimes I'll have people out with me and they'll go, man, if there was Bigfoots, people would see them. You know, look, there's houses and stuff. And I'll go, nobody knows we're here right now. If we were Bigfoots, nobody would know it. We're standing here right now, and there's a road. You know, nobody knows it. So anyway, I lost my train of thought. Where were we at?
You were talking about the Bigfoot whistling at the others of the other spot. Yeah.
So anyway, I would go down, and so anyway, I kind of. We ended up getting run out of that other place. Long story short,
but you got run out by the Bigfoot,
the lurch guy.
The guy that lived.
Because I had told him I was a wildlife photographer, and they caught us out there at nighttime. But I had gotten away with it a few times at night before he finally said anything, and then and I thought, well, who is he? He don't own it, so I called the owner. And he goes, David, he said, you was a wildlife photographer. You wasn't wildlife photographing out there. And so I think he might have knew too. You know what I'm saying? And the people that donated the land, they had to know. You know.
Well, you know, when you said that to me the other day, it almost is like, like that is a spot where activity maybe has happened for years and years and years, and those people, those anthropologists, may have bought it specifically for that purpose of studying what was going on.
Right, right.
And which, why not? If you could, if
Well,
you were
but now I should make one thing clear is the air. If you go down the road, up here is a house, and then there's a gate, on the road. Well, from that gate on is the property that the university has. So they had the right to run me off of the front part. But I did do some investigating in the back part. But be honest with you, it seemed like most of the activity was there by that house. And which I found that I don't know why, but Sasquatches really aren't afraid to live around people. I don't know if they just like being close, because obviously if they were getting in your trash or something that you would think is obvious that the reason they're around there, that people would know about it, they would be calling the law. But they have no problem living close to people as long as you've got water and good woods that are connected to even bigger woods, Mm-hmm. And so anyway, every now and then I would ride through this area. I used to actually grew up in there when I was a child, and I would always get to this one spot, and I would think, man, this is just so beautiful. And I would stop and get out and everything. And I had forgotten to tell you that while I was initially doing my Sasquatch, I was me and this girl was together. Well, we ended up breaking up, and so I had kind of quit doing anything. I hadn't been, and I'd seen them anyway. So, but something about that area made me stop, and I would stop and I would think how beautiful this place is. And it was kind of the same situation with the ground, except this was a little bit higher of a mountain or a hill, and it would come down, and then here's the road, and it goes down, and then there's the creek, kind of the same kind of setup. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to start, checking out on the Bigfoots again and stuff. And now at this point, I really didn't realize that they could be that close. But I just thought, it's worth a try. So I started leaving food out there. I would leave bananas and apples. And I can't remember if it was right off the bat, but soon after me doing that, I started seeing the bananas peeled. And they don't do them like we do. They don't peel them like that. They either take them like that or they peel them from the bottom. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I'm onto something. And so anyway, and I even kept a journal back then. And everybody would go, man, you need to put a camera there. You need to, but I'm not out. And you and I talked about this the other day. I used to want to try to prove to people that Sasquatch there really is a Bigfoots. But after a while, I got to where, I don't care if they believe it or not, unless it's going to help protect them, which my friends and stuff aren't going to do that, or the people I'm having contact with, they're not going to do anything to protect them. So why should I care? So, and I had already I knew for myself. So it kind of, lost the mystery or part of it. And so, and I was going through that breakup. So I kind of, and I hadn't done anything for quite a while. And so anyway, I started seeing these signs, and there was a male, according to prints. Now, I never did see the adults, but there was a male and a female. And when I first started, there was a real small one, and its prints was maybe like this, like maybe 5-6 inches. And but after a couple of years, it had gotten bigger, and so I started not seeing the prints after a couple of years. I forgot to tell you, they would leave me things like one time they brought me an onion, like a real onion that you pull out of the ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There ain't, out of the woods. I don't know where they got that. They would bring me flowers, that didn't grow around that area. One time they brought me a snake, a little baby snake with its head bit off. And another thing that I noticed back then too was I would always find these little sticks where I think they were brushing their teeth. Now, back in the day, when I was really trying to prove things, oh, the other thing I meant to tell you, I went over with you. I had been collecting all this evidence at the other place. I mean, hair, squat, all kinds of stuff, and little bones and things that I thought they had been touching. And I had it all in that refrigerator at my girlfriend's house. And when we broke up and stuff, I wasn't really thinking about all that stuff. And when I did call her, she had thrown it away. So there was so much stuff I could have got at this other place where I was feeding them that it would have, but people were already actually proven at this point. You had that, we talked about the Erickson Project and some of the ones you mentioned, so to me, it was just a scientific community refusing to accept it more so than they need more evidence, So I quit worrying about it. As a matter of fact, I left them a water bottle one time, Shay, like this. And they opened it up like that. They opened it up and drank the water and put the top back on, and you could see the thumbprints, the big thumbprint on the bottle. Now, I did keep that for a while, but I don't know whatever happened to it. And so anyway, that went on for, 2 or 3 years, I guess, 2.5 years. And so I'm there one day in the morning, and I'm just sitting there looking up the hill because I would always look. I always kind of figured they were looking at me, but I couldn't see them, and I always trying to take the glasses and look at, and as we were talking about, I never wanted them to feel like I was trying to exploit them, like I was trying to do anything to, like they kind of can sense, I think, your intentions, and that's
I've heard that. I've heard that a ton, where it seems like they know whether your intentions are good or bad, or and they may not even understand, what the term being exploited, is, but they do understand that that's not a pure emotion that you're going out there with.
Yeah, they would. It wouldn't do me no good to go, hey, I'm not exploiting you, but yeah, they could tell whether you're, if you're there for you or for them,
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what? And that's not really that hard to believe, because dogs can do the same thing. Dogs can tell, good people from bad people and what their intentions are and stuff like that. So anyway, to get back to this, so I'm sitting there and I'm watching, looking up there, trying to see if I see anything. It's just a beautiful place. And all of a sudden behind me, I hear this big, sounded like a squirrel jumping in a tree, except like huge. And I look over there, and there's I guess you would call him adolescent. He was probably about like a 8-10-year-old kid as far as size, kind of rusty brown color, and he was jumping from one limb to another. And like I said, I don't exploit them or try to exploit them. And to me, it was just a blessed thing to see. I wasn't interested in trying to chase him down or see where he went or nothing. I thought, well, there he is. And I thought, well, you know what? They're running him out of the nest, or out of their homestead, because it needs to go find its own place. And I never see no signs of that one anymore. When I go there, I don't. And I did see some more little feet. So they've had another baby. It's been a while. I've had some things going on with the family, so I actually haven't been there probably in a few months. But I'll be interested to see, watch how they're growing and stuff. And that was another thing. I think there are areas to where Bigfoot move or Sasquatch move, and then there's areas where they live. Okay. That's a homestead for them. They're staying there year round. And I would try to make sure in the wintertime I was keeping notes, and I would go, yeah, they're still here, and it's like December and stuff. And but the males, the adolescent ones, I think they travel and they use those corridors, and something that if you think about it, like in southern Indiana, almost all the highways, the interstates, if you go up from Indianapolis down, are bordered by national forestries. And then when you get down, cross over into Kentucky and take like 71 going to Cincinnati, there is, if you look at it on a map, there is, I don't know what you would call it. I call it a corridor to walk, but it's actually small forests that bound all along that interstate. Like you could walk through next to that interstate down in there and nobody'd ever see you. And I think they use those to travel. And you and I talked about the river, now I've never seen a Sasquatch in the river, but people that have said that they've seen them and they float, they say that they've got hollow hair. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know if they have to swim or float, but they will cross the rivers and stuff when they're getting around. And I think that is mostly the males looking for females, like pregnancies or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
And so so now I got a kind of amusing story to tell you here. This is kind of funny. The area that I was telling you about that's right down below this subdivision that I was going down there, and I was seeing signs there, but I could tell they didn't live there, but they were in there now and then. And so me and my grandson, the one that got out with me right at the beginning, TJ, we'd been down there a bunch of times, and we'd taken our clubs and knocking and stuff like that. And I was drinking back then, so I had a little fanny pouch with some beers in it, And so we get done and we're walking back, and here comes this policeman and jumps out of there, and it's nighttime. And he goes, "What are y'all doing?" And I said, "We're Bigfoot hunting." And he goes, "What?" And I said, "Sasquatch, Bigfoot hunting." He goes, "Well, why you have weapons?" And I said, "Well, we use them to knock on the trees." Well, Bob, I'm talking to him. Here comes this Barney Fife guy. I mean, he's all jacked up, The other guy was kind of cool. And this guy comes out and he goes, "What do you got in that fanny pack?" And I went to show him, and he goes, "Don't touch it." And I'm like, "Well," and he goes, "What are y'all doing down here? What are them weapons for?" And I said, "Knocking trees for Bigfoots and hunting Bigfoots." And he looks over at his partner, and his partner goes, "But so he goes, thank you. Have a good day or have a good evening." But listen, before we did that, my daughter was working at Mirno's Pizza, and most of their the people that had started it and owned it were firemen, and so they had the emergency call radio on, all the time.
They had.
Yeah, and so listen to this shit. The calls in and says, "There's some people down in the public park here in Highland, and they're Bigfoot hunting." And Anna, my daughter, goes, "Oh my God, that's my daddy. I gotta go."
Oh my God.
I said, "I gotta go. They're gonna lock my daddy up." But anyway, down at that other place I was telling you about, I had the state police, the police of the town police, the security of the area that I was in, game warden. I've had all of them come down there, and I was just honest with them what I'm doing, and there wasn't no giggles or nothing. Now I think it's getting to be a little more acceptable, but when I first started, you were crazy, and hey, leave the Bigfoot alone. Let him come in here.
The dogs.
For dinner. Leave him alone. Leave Harvey alone. Shut up. Here. So anyway, and I do have another story that has to do with Sasquatch, but it goes a little bit weirder. If you want me to tell it to you.
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
Okay, well, me and my buddy, this gets really weird. Me and my buddy me and my grandson are on these tracks, and it's a different area, but it's in the same location where the where the police got us, you know.
Yeah.
Except we're on the tracks and we're going down, and I would always see a little bits of sign back in there. So we go down there and it's getting dark, and so we just decide to set, and we're kind of almost into the neighborhood, basically. Matter of fact, we're kind of in the backyards of some of them but the tracks are up here behind them. And he's sitting here and he's looking that way, and I'm kind of looking more towards where we're headed. And he goes, "Pappy, look." And Shane, I turn around and look, and here comes this guy walking. Black, like silk suit, you know, I mean, just fine looking, you know, hair slicked back, kind of like sandy brown hair. And he comes in, he sits down with us. And we get to talking, and he says he lives back there. So I get really interested. And I start asking him if he sees any Bigfoots or anything. No. And actually, I'm thinking, I'm going to keep my eye on this guy. You know, who is this guy? You know, and I kept that club close to me. And then, and you know how after you've been talking for a minute, you might go, "Oh, hey, by the way, my name's David." And he goes, "I'm Satan." And I'm like, so I start, listen to this. So I start calling, you know, and I got, like me and you were talking, I'm going, "Hey, Shane." Well, I'd have to go, "Hey, Satan," you know. And I said, "Really, what's your name?" And he goes, "I'm Satan." And so anyway, I was going through that breakup with my girlfriend. We had kind of talked and then broke up again. And it was really bothering me. And I told him about it for some reason. I don't know why I told him about it. And he said, "David," he said, "think of this." He said, you were wasting your whole day worrying about what she's doing and who she's with, or does she still love you? And she's not thinking about you at all. You know, think about it. You're using all this energy and stuff up, and she doesn't even think about you. Now, whether she did or not, it was good to hear it like that, because that helped me. That helped me, right? So anyway, he goes, "Do you want to come back and see where I live?" And that alarm bells are going off, you know. And I'm like, "No," I said, "we got to be back or people will come looking for us, you know." And so after we left and he wasn't, or we were walking away and he hadn't tried anything, then I started getting some respect for him, that he's living down there, you know. And I said, "Hey, what if we ever want to come and see you, you know, or, you know, bring you something or anything?" He goes, "Just yell out Satan and I'll be there." And so anyway, we start to walk, and TJ, my grandson, and it goes a lot longer than this. This isn't the end of it. He looks back and he goes, "Pappy, look." And we hadn't taken 10 steps, Shane, and he was gone. He was gone. So I tell my kids about this, right? I wouldn't go back there no more. I would not go back there anymore. They went back there and they found where he lived. And it was underground. It had like a 3-room place underground with skulls. And they took pictures of it and everything. And took other friends down there. And I said, "Look, you guys don't know what you're messing with." I said, "You need to not go down there." And eventually, I guess the authorities heard about it, and they came in there and bulldozed it all down. Bulldozed it down there. And now, why Satan would have to live in a hole in the ground, I don't know, but that's what happened. So now, this is what's really weird. Months later, I've started feeling that pain again about the breakup, you know, and I'm crying, and I'm taking my bird dogs out, right? These dogs, well, not these ones, but some ones I had then, down the tracks running, and I was by myself this time. And I got to thinking, you know what? Whether he said he's Satan or not, he's the one that made me feel better. You know, out of everybody I talked to, he made me feel better. And so I kind of, because I'm Christian, so I didn't want to yell out, "Hey, Satan." But kind of like under my breath a little bit or something, I said, "Satan, please help me." I hate that I said that, really, to be honest with you, but I did. So anyway, I'm crying, and I take the dogs on out, And then I turn around and I come back, and going out, we go right by where the house where they bulldozed his place down. And so I'm coming back, and I just knew he was going to be there. I don't know how I knew it. All of a sudden, he pops up next to the tracks, and now it's summertime, and the grass is like growed up with the little golden things on the end, about like waist high. This time he's in like a golden suit, with not nothing supernatural, just a nice slick gold colored suit, And he goes, "Hey, I heard you crying. Oh, I forgot to tell you too. That first time when we were there, he told me, he said he has a dog, but you'll never see him unless he wants you to. He's always on the edge. That's what he told us. And because that's for a different story right after this. So anyway, I got scared to death when he popped up there and he goes, "I seen you were crying. Do you want to talk?" And it freaked me out, and I took off. I said, "No, I'm okay." I wouldn't talk to him. And so that was it. I never went back there. I still haven't been back there. And that was probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So maybe even longer than that, maybe like 8 years ago. So anyway, then another night, me and my grandson are down in the same area, but we're in a different spot beside the creek. And it's like, here's the creek, and then there's like bushes maybe 3 or 4 foot wide right up next to the path. And then on the other side is like a wetland where it's protected, kind of wet. And we're sitting back there and doing the knocking and everything. And then all of a sudden, my grandson, who's not mentally challenged, but just a little bit, like I always say, he can sense things, and
like he's autistic or something, maybe.
Yeah, but not really autistic, just not all the way there, I guess you could say, And anyway, he goes, "Pappy, something's going to happen. We got to get out of here." And I said, "TJ, what? Don't worry about it." He goes, "Something's getting ready to happen, Pappy." Saying, right as soon as he said that, something, like, that's why I told you about that dog that he said he had. Something wasn't as near like the Bigfoot, but it was just as mean and vicious and scary right on the other side of them bushes we were on. And I went like that, the balls go up in the belly, and I'm like, but then they come back down, and it might have took 20 seconds. And then I run through the path through those bushes and look up and down. You could see all the way to the road to the next neighborhood and all the way back to the park, nothing. So there's stuff we don't know about. We know very little about this planet and the things that are on it. And that's why I'll tell you what, ever since I've been involved with Bigfoot, you could tell me you've seen a fairy and I would believe you. You could tell me you've seen this, that, and the other. Who am I to say you didn't? Because I know there's stuff we don't know about.
Absolutely. We say, I say that all the time. We all of us involved in the podcast say that, because once you have an experience that's outside the box, so to speak, how big does your box become?
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Now I'm curious. So I'm curious about, what did your grandson think the first time you met this person, this Satan? Like, did he think anything after you guys were walking away?
I don't think, well, as we were walking back after he said that, and we looked back and he was gone, he goes, "Pappy, that's weird." He said, "That's weird." And I said, "That's damn weird, TJ." And and with him not being, with him being just a little like that, we didn't really talk about it that much, or, "Hey, do you believe this?" And like I said, then when I told the kids, of course, they immediately, and the kids, I call them kids, they were out of high school and stuff, they were my kids. And but but yeah, he has some sort of, I mean, he was with me the first time, man, maybe they're attracted to him or something,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I mean, because, I mean, and I've heard that too, is, you know, we define what is normal, okay, to whatever make ourselves feel better. And that, and you come to find out, like even autistic kids who sometimes get looked at differently, or autistic people, but they have special ability.
Yeah.
It's just their brains are working at a different, at a different level of what a quote unquote normal person is. And
Right.
they may be able to, it's
Well,
obvious.
and another thing too, like the Bible says, you got to become like children, where you haven't had all of those influences all your life growing up. And to him, he's totally just, this is what happened. I'm not, it's not a question in my mind.
He's not judging it or has a prejudice against it.
I mean, because you do kind of go, what the hell? I mean, with the Bigfoots, at least I had studied it and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But with the Satan guy,
so why did they go in? Like, did they go in and tear his structure down because it was somewhere that?
Yeah, it was on the railroad property.
Okay.
So I don't really know if the city did it or the railroad did it, but I'm assuming that somehow it got, because how kids are. Hey, come here and let's go see where the devil lives, and went there. They probably had selling tickets and stuff. I don't know. I stayed away. I wouldn't go back, and still haven't been there. And I'm within 2 miles of it, as we said, and I'm within 6 miles of that place where the baby one was, and I'm right across the river from Louisville. So I'm in a pretty populated area, and there are a lot, but there's also an old ammunition plant here that the government gave to our city, and then they made businesses out of it. And then the other part of it, they gave to the next town, Charleston, and they made a state park out of it. And I remember, one time I would go late, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go to the state park because woods wise, they're all connected, and so you go to the thing and you got to go through the gate, and all that. So they check you in, you give them your $5. And this is probably 10 o'clock at night, something like that, not real late. And I guess that lady, and I'm in a good mood, and the girl's pretty that's taking our stuff. And I'm saying, yeah, we're going Bigfoot. And she goes, what? So evidently she probably called the guy on the radio,
the park ranger or something.
The park ranger. So we get down there, and we're in our car, and he pulls up, and he said, what y'all doing? And I said, we're going to go back here and knock for Sasquatch, Bigfoot. He goes, really? And I go, yeah. He goes, you mind if I come? He went with us.
Really?
I mean, nothing happened. We didn't hear no knocking or nothing like that. But, that just goes to show you how people are getting more accepting of the fact that there's something there. And like you said, once you get past that barrier, I guess like if you've seen a ghost. Now, I've never knowingly seen a ghost, but if people tell me they have, I believe them. Why would they? And that's another thing too, is like people, when this first started, people that know I would never lie to them about anything would think I was lying about the Bigfoots. Like, why would I lie about that? And nothing else. Why am I lying about that? And why am I going out in the middle of the night? So, but I've got to the point now to where now they're mostly all believers. They haven't seen anything or nothing, but just from the things that I've told them and stuff, they're pretty much. Plus, you got all that stuff on TV. But I think I've missed what I was going to tell you. Say earlier was not to talk bad about the TV people that are out there, but those Bigfoots know. You pull up and you go walking through the woods with two people this way, two people that way, two people this way,
and camera and a sound guy,
cameras and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's not a good way to look for a Sasquatch. As a matter of fact, the best way is to have them come to you, because if you're going out there looking for them, you're not gonna. You might accidentally see a glimpse of one or something, but I think the best way is to form a relationship with them. And when I talk to people that'll call me and stuff, I always tell them because they'll hear noises in their woods. I'll ask them if they hear any like strange whoops and stuff, or if they hear any wood knocks, and then I'll say leave some fruit out there and see what you find. And because I think you need to establish a relationship with them. Now, if you're going 100 miles from your house to do this, you're not going to be able to do that. Yeah. Because you're not going to go 100 miles every night to feed them. So, and believe me, anybody that's watching this, if you're in an area that's halfway secluded, but especially if it ties into bigger forests, like a national forestry, state forestry, and especially if you're anywhere near a river, like we got the Ohio River, you got the Ohio River, and don't be afraid to go take some bananas somewhere and stick them in the woods, close enough to where it ain't that big a deal for you to go check on them, and you do that a few times, you might find you've got Bigfoots living in your backyard that you don't, that you never thought of.
Yeah.
And I encourage people to do that, because I think the more people that actually have seen them and interacted with them and see that they're not that's why I hate that one show where it shows them going, ow,
like it's a monster.
Like they're a monster, they're not like that. Now, you and I did speak the other day about how we think there's different kinds of them.
Yeah, I think that is probably, that's the only way it could be. I think it seems in different parts of the country, you get different types of encounters. And it sounds, like I think in Texas, they sound more aggressive. I've heard some crazy stuff from people in Texas, and people that that have not, wanted to share on the air just yet, but they've talked about, and they've had like some very active, mean, aggressive encounters. Florida is the same way.
I've heard those skunk apes are more aggressive.
Yeah, they see. But if you were walking around and you had to, number one, you're covered in hair and it's hotter than Hades, and there's alligators and there's pythons all over the place, you'd be pretty aggressive. You'd be pretty aggressive.
And not only that,
and Stacy Brown. Gee, I'm giving a shout out to Stacy Brown. And you got Stacy Brown out there chasing you. You'd be really aggressive.
And the other thing is too, it's us invading their area.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They've probably lived there for ages, and now here we're encroaching on them, and it may make them mad. Plus, now I would think that if there was young ones around and they felt like you were good, they didn't know your intentions around the young ones, that you could probably get into some problems. And as we talked about too, is like areas that are secluded where they don't really have any interaction with humans. They're probably a little bit different than the ones that are, are used to the interaction with people. And like I said, I think the ones around here are more curious.
Well, it sounds like you're that close to Louisville, so obviously it's a very populated place, and they probably understand that, okay, this is just part of what we have to deal with.
Right.
They may not like it, but like you said, I think you made that comment about how you drove back into the one place blasting Hank, okay, and just announced to them that you were coming. And I've heard that quite a few times, where people will go out and go camping under they're going out squatching, but they just turn the radio on, they pick up an instrument, they play, and because that's not something that these creatures hear all the time, is music.
Right.
And What is that? The music soothes the savage beast.
Savage beats, yeah, soothes the savage beats, yeah. But now
And
we're saying they're not savage beats. We
yeah,
don't want to have people saying
yeah,
that. But
but
yeah, I get your point. Yeah,
I mean, music attracts everybody. Good music, even bad music attracts everybody. But there's something about that is enchanting and may draw them in. And like you said, you're not fooling them. So
right.
you might as well just say,
And you're
"Hey,
putting
I'm."
out good vibes too. You're not putting
Yeah.
out any threatening vibes to them or anything like that. And I always say these urban type squats. To me, it's like they're going to the zoo. They're going to watch us.
And you're the animal. Hey, as funny as that sounds, that very well may be true. I mean,
Yeah,
100%. I mean, because you hear all the time about them peeking in windows and they're always right there, seemingly just out of view.
and
So
why when you don't even know they're there yet? Why would they bang on your house or throw little rocks up on your roof? They want you to
to
interact with
react,
them, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
or at least they want you to react so they can find some entertainment in it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing
Like
else.
like if you were throwing rocks at the birds behind the bars or something,
Yeah,
move around. You
yeah.
go and the lions are always just laying there, not doing nothing. But um, yeah, I agree. But one thing I was going to tell you too is as far as them watching you, and this is really probably the last story I'll tell. But that same area over in Kentucky, where I seen the big ones, well, me and my son were there one time, and the area where I always put the food was like behind a brush pile because we're in a clearing, maybe 20, 30-yard clearing. And then the woods was all around us. And that's where I would always leave the food. And I kept looking over there and it was dark. And I kept looking over there and I'd been there so much, I kind of knew, what things was. And I kept looking and it looked like something sitting there, kind of close to the place where I fed him, the bushes. And I kept telling my son, I said, Bub, I think that's a Bigfoot sitting there. Because I don't remember that being there. He goes, no, my son was always a skeptic. How they have that one show where the girl, a Bigfoot can kiss her and she wouldn't. But that's what she's supposed to do,
Yeah.
But my son was always skeptical. And I said, he goes, Dad, that ain't a Bigfoot. That's a stump. And I said, no. So anyway, we fooled around for an hour or so, and I thought, we were getting ready to leave, and I thought I'm going to go over there, and I went over there. Oh, one other thing I thought I was going to tell you: if you're really interested in going out and investigating Sasquatch, leave your flashlight in your pocket. They do not like flashlights. The red lights and stuff, I guess, then people go out there with them. Maybe they're okay, but they do. I'd never let nobody shine a flashlight when I'm out in the woods with them. But that time we were leaving and I got up close to that thing and I shined that light on that thing and that thing took off on all fours right back behind that bush and disappeared into the woods. And it had been there forever, just sitting there watching us like a cat. So they could be, and they're in the trees a lot more than people realize too. They're definitely up in the trees, and but anyway, my whole goal is, and I wish I could just, I wish you were my representative in Congress. You know what I'm saying? To where where they would go, or where we could take them out maybe and show them, because in academia is so resistant to anything that they haven't already wrote about or that changes their narrative. And that's in space. And now the ancestor people, what do you call them, that go and check the bones and stuff, the old bones.
Archaeologists,
Now they'll change their stuff easy kind of easy. You know, they go, oh wow, now I guess we didn't come from this human, we came from this one. You know, they're pretty, but you get people like cryptid and ghosts or anything that's kind of out of ordinary, and that's why you got to give Jeff Melvin a lot of credit. You know, he was one of the first people to say, well, I'm going to go check this out. And now he's basically, if they would listen to him, he's proven it with those casts he's got with the mid-tarsal ridge or whatever you call it, you know.
Well, the research that he has done and the stuff that he presents, if it was about anything else, nobody would, in scientific, they wouldn't question it. You know, if he was doing that on a bear,
if it was, yeah, right,
or whatever, it'd be like, oh my gosh, yeah, you're totally right. There's this unknown, but people are resistant because, you know, and the funny thing is, and like you said, you know, we've talked about ghosts and UFO, and we talk about everything on this show, is it's always funny how no matter where we go, my wife, she kind of sometimes is rolling her eyes when she knows I'm going to ask somebody something, and
that's probably why I don't have one.
it's so funny when you kind of throw it out there and say, hey, you know, like, especially if we're in a building that I know is like an old building and there might be some history to it, I'll always ask, like, hey, what's the ghost story situation here? And it never fails. They'll look at you and they'll be like, well, this place is supposed to be haunted, but I've never, well, but there was this one time. And they start telling you a story, and then there's another story, and then it leads to something else. And I got this and I got this cousin, and I got this, and they didn't, and it happened to them, and they didn't want to tell. They didn't want to tell you,
right.
You know, and I'm asking, so they obviously know that I have an interest, and I, you know, and I'll ask about Bigfoot stuff, and so I think more people than not either have had some sort of paranormal experience, or they at least know somebody who's had one.
And like you said the other day, people that from the 1990s are starting to come out. You know, like I had experience, you know, 30 years ago that I didn't ever want to tell anybody, but now it's a little more acceptable.
I've had a couple people. I had a lady come on from the 60s who had an experience, and it was, you know, it was the first time she told. I had a couple people from the 70s who had experiences, and they had, you know, so you're talking people who have held these stories for 40 and 50 years. Yep. And they got to the point where they're like, I just can't keep it quiet anymore. I got to talk to somebody about this.
Well, and then also, Shane, we were talking about, you have the people that live in those remote areas that are probably interacting with the Sasquatches on a daily, like I told you, the guy that had them in the yard, you know.
And what do they care? And first of all, who do you report that to? Okay. Right. And until, you know, because
Ghostbusters.
Yeah, exactly. And I gotta be honest, until podcasts came around, there was really no like open forum for people to listen to this stuff or share their experiences. And but like so if there's somebody out there living in the woods and that's their existence, what do they care if I, in the middle of Ohio, believe what's happening to them out in the middle of Wyoming or something? You know, they don't care. They know what they know, and you know, like I'm out on the mail route every day. People they don't care that a dog's trying to bite me. You know, they don't care. They got their own lives to
right. And it's but there has to be an end to the questioning if they exist. I mean, that there's enough evidence to prove without a shadow of a doubt that there is a unknown hominoid living in America. That ought to be good enough.
Well,
you know, check the DNA.
I think the ultimate problem with the average everyday person is that there's no place to go like a zoo, or like there's not one in captivity somewhere. that you can go look at the camera and watch it 24 hours. There's everybody needs to have that proof or whatever, because the problem is no, it doesn't matter a picture or a video. No, that's never going to be enough proof for people.
Right.
Never, because
you would think DNA would. At least
people
in the
don't-
science community.
Yeah. But there's not going to be a scientist that comes forward and probably said, no matter how much DNA evidence they have, unless there's some physical evidence. And because that's the first question they're going to be asked, then where's the physical evidence? Because
there's
some
been
people
go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, because some people still would question the DNA evidence, so.
Yeah. Especially since we don't really understand DNA, the average person, but there have been people that have reported having squatches in their sights and couldn't pull the trigger because they look too human.
Yep.
And that's what the scientists want. They want a body. Yep. Now, the question is it worth taking one to show to the scientists that they're real, would the benefits outweigh the actually taking another life? And I don't think so.
What would be the benefit? What would be the benefits? Imagine you're the person that shoots one, and then you find out that they're way more human than people even suspected.
Right.
Then you have to feel like you shot a person.
Yeah, and you and I kind of touched on that. I know that a guy's name was, I should have looked it up, but that supposedly there was two guys there, and the one guy shot, there was a mother and two babies, and the mother had gotten up and was waving his hands like, hey, I'm right here, don't mess with us, and he shot one of the babies. And when he went to get it, and he looked at it, and he said it looked like a baby. It looked like a human baby. And so he left. He was afraid they were going to charge him with murder or something,
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
And I know, and you hear people that'll say, man, I've been hunting all my life. I've been up and down the hollers all my life, up on the top of the mountains. And I've never seen one of them things. And you know what? They could have been all around you. There are some hunters that run into them sometimes,
Yeah, those are
like
the best.
I was saying,
those are the best stories.
Yeah, and then like I was saying, you could go into a woods and take a little bit of time, an hour or so, walking around, and you can kind of tell if there's activity in there, because they'll leave signs. And one thing that people miss a lot, and I had actually watched this one the other day, and I had forgotten that because I was into that at the time, is the stick writing. Sometimes they'll leave sticks on the trail, like crossed, and then maybe one like this, almost like letters, and but anyway, there was just so much to although I know now that the show, when I talked to you, I didn't know you had a show. I thought you was just somebody on Facebook that was wanting to know a little bit more about Bigfoot. But now that I know about your show, I'll be tuning in because I like all the other stuff too. The ghosts. It seems like you're more interested in the things that you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know there's Bigfoots. I know where they're at. But as a matter of fact, some of these people, like they'll take people on guides and try to have encounters and guide them there and stuff. And if you ever notice, they rarely do very good. I mean, they might hear a knock somewhere or something, because I think they're feeling that from them. They're like, oh, look, they're bringing and that's why I try not to reveal my locations too much, because the last thing you want's everybody and their brother running up around in their area,
Absolutely.
And anyway, my interest in Sasquatch is the only reason I even care that anybody else knows about it is to try to get some sort of protection from them. But with the ghosts and stuff, that
There's no protection.
And the
There's
UFOs.
no protection.
I forgot. I didn't finish that story about being my coat guy. Okay.
Okay.
So we're in that same woods that we heard the dog, growl and all that stuff, and where the police came back in the back, and it's like a swampy bird area, and so we're back there, and I had some beef jerky, and because I had felt like there was some activity going on around in there. Wasn't seeing nothing concrete, but just, and that was before I got the thing barked at me, or growled at us. And so me and him were there. So we put the stuff out, and I got my trail camera. Back then, I actually was using a trail camera. And so before we left, we go, we're all messed up and everything. And we go, hey, let's take a picture of us on this thing. So we get out there, and we got our beer up and laughing. When I checked that out, Shane, there was 50 orbs of all different colors all around us.
Really?
Yes. Now, how that ties in, I have no idea, but it does.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so at the time, were you guys messed up or whatever? Or
yeah, we were messed up at the time, but when we looked at it, we weren't.
I'm just wondering, like, I mean, I know nothing about, I've never even had a drink. Okay. So I don't know anything about like what that does to your mind. Okay. And so does it maybe open your mind to something else that maybe all these.
So they come around you mean?
Yeah. Like maybe they sense, maybe they sense.
We didn't know it till 2 weeks later, when we looked at the film on the camera. But yeah, you could be right. Like and I think that is true too, because I'll be honest with you. I wondered if sometimes, because not everybody believes in them and they know that. But I think they want us to at some level, or at least certain people. And I've always thought they probably know where I live.
If you live that close to where you're experiencing them.
Yeah. And so I've always wondered, they might be right to come out in the middle of the night in the backyard or somewhere, but it don't bother me a bit. It's like I told you the other day, my goal, other than to get them protected, would be to sit down and eat some apples with them.
Hey, listen, if you could do that, that would be amazing. But
that's another show.
Yeah, that's.
If we get that one, we're going places.
well, David, I'm so glad that you responded to my message, and that you were willing to come on here and share these. Because I mean, first of all, the Bigfoot stuff is great. Okay, I mean, I could tell that you have you had a real passion and still do, and we're doing things, from all accounts, the way to do it if you want to have some sort of experience. Right. The Satan story is crazy, right. but that lines up with and you'll, if you do start going back through the old episodes, you'll find, I mean, you're not the only person who's come across somebody who shouldn't have been there, and there's no real reason for that.
I think what I'm going to do, Shane, is when I get off of here, I think because my kids all know I'm having this interview with you, although we thought it was tonight live, so they were all going to tune in. But anyway, they took pictures, and I think they may still have some of his underground house. Oh, if he has them, I'll send them to you.
Send them to me, and we'll put them up on our social media.
Yeah,
if you're okay with that.
I'll do that free of charge. No, I know you're a struggling songwriter, so
yeah. Well, I hope Satan's okay with that. So, but
one day we'll get together and go hike out in the woods a little bit.
Hey, you don't live that far away, so.
Nope.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing, and I think our listeners are going to love this interview.
I hope so, and I hope they understand that they're not bad beings. They're good. They're The ones I know anyway. But like you said, there might be some somewhere. But yeah, I just wish. And you know what? If we protected them and stayed out of their area, even the mean ones you wouldn't have to deal with.
There you go. Good point.
All right, Shane. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.